Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video, and today I'll be doing part 2 of the build video for the GB130, which as you can see here in part 1, we wired up the motors to the ESCs, to the power distribution board, as well as we got that little regulator on, and we have our video transmitter and flight controller power wires coming off, so we're all done with that. So basically the next step, we're going to be moving on to adding our receiver underneath in here. So just going to go in like that. And then we're going to put our little modified flight control on there, the stack, and then the frame goes on there, and then the video transmitter and camera be housed up here. So first, let's get to the receiver here. This is the X4R SB, you can see here. So basically, I'm going to be using S-Bus for this build, so we're going to need 3 wires here. So take one of these cables that come with the flight controller to go in and find the end with the triple connector, as you can see here. Hopefully if I can undo it. All 3 wires go into one single connector. These ones are all single pinned ones, so we're going to have to remove all of these. So let me do that here. Alright, so there we go. I removed all but this triple connector here from that, and you do that by lifting up on the little pins under there and then pulling, just giving a lot of pressure under there, and you'll pull the thing right out. So this basically, the flight controller is going to mount here. This will plug in like this. My flight controller I'm going to want like this, so it's the port's going to come out the back because there's a little arrow on here. You can see the arrow's pointing this way forward, but that'll put the USB coming out the back, which I don't really want because it's meant to come out the side on this build. So I'm going to turn it. So if this is the front up here, it'll come out the side here, so the port comes out the back that we're going to be using, which should be really easy because this is just going to wire in like this, set down through here. So actually we're going to need a little bit more wire than I thought. So let me pull back out here. So if this goes through here, the wire is going to have to come all the way around to the front. So I'm just going to cut the cable at the end of it here, just maybe 3/4 of an inch of it off. Just cut that off there. Now let's strip these wires. Okay, got those wire strips. So now let's tin the wires and the receiver pads. Okay, for the receiver, this is the FreeSky X4R SB once again, and the pads we're going to be using for S-Bus are these front 3. Right here, these 3. This is signal, this is positive, and this is ground right here. So it's going to go white, red, black, just in order, like an order of this connector here. So let's tin that. Okay, there we go. And because of the way this board is, with this little regulator here that sticks up and this smart port connector here, I'm going to want to put this on the other side. Let's see, how did I want this? This comes like this. Okay, yeah, I was going to mount it like this so it could lay down as low as possible to get underneath this stack once we add that. So I'm actually going to run the wires instead of coming out. If I would run them like this, I'm going to run them back across the main board here. So let's unplug this connector just so it's easier to work on. Get all these wires out of the way, and let's solder this guy up.
Okay, so here goes signal. Get something to hold this. Here we go, signal. And we're going to go positive voltage. There we go. And lastly, we're going to go ground here.
So there we go. And I'm just going to let me get that ground a little farther forward. There we go. And I'm going to add a little more solder to these pads, and I'm also going to hit them with some hot glue just to make sure things don't fall off. Okay, here we are with the hot glue on and wires all installed here. So next, I get a piece of clear heat shrink and shrink this down around this to protect it from any shorts when it's in the stack here. Okay, there we go. I got it all over, and I'm making sure to keep the wires to the right side here because when we flip this upside down, we don't want them to hit, put extra space on that regulator, so this will keep them better out of the way here. So now I'll take my heat gun and shrink this down. Alright, there we go. Our X4R is now all nicely shrunk down. It should just be able to go in here like this. Once we put the flight controller on, maybe foam tape wedge it down, and the flight controller should just come up like this, and this connector should just plug in there and be like that, and we can tuck that in a little bit. But we have plenty of wiggle room there. So next, I'm actually these wires for the flight controller. Okay, so I'm gonna put these on actually. So if you take a look at the flight controller, it comes with these little standoffs here. Let me get one so I can show you. These standoffs here, and I put those through, and I also used a set of little nuts that they give you and just put one on underneath. So there's still a few threads left, and this is going to give us a little more height on the board, which will let us fit our receiver in there, because otherwise it wouldn't have fit with that little regulator. So I'm just going to screw these down. There's not as many threads as I would like. It's probably about 5 on each side, but it should be good enough overall to hold it down with all 4 of these spacers on. And an all-in-one flight controller board that had something like a flight controller and power distribution board in one would be very handy for this build. Alright, there we go. So I have the board all just not fully tightened down, but just mocked up, so you can see that that little extra washer gave us enough room in between there for a receiver. Because first I'm going to run these little wires up to power the flight controller. So let me zoom in on this because I want to check the flight controller and the receiver that they are both functioning before I put them in, because on the X210 build I just did, the GB130, they were both faulty. Actually, both of them were, so I had to take them out and replace them, so this is going to be good to check. So here we have, on the flight controller, we have all these little pinholes, and we're just going to be direct soldering. So on top, you can see the S, this for signal, 1 through 8 here, so we're going to be using 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the positive, 5 volts, which is going to come from this little red wire that we have from the power distribution board underneath. We're just going to solder that to any of the positives because they're all linked together in a rail. And then the negatives, the grounds, which we're going to be using for all of the ESCs as well as the power. So let's go ahead and tin all those pads that we're going to use here. There we go. So signal and grounds 1 through 4 I just tinned, as well as signal and ground and positive for where we're going to solder the power on. Any of the other pads you can use, it does not matter. So let's get the power wires up here. Okay, these are pretty small wires. Be very careful not to get the nylon spacers in reach of your soldering iron, as you will very, very easily melt them. So. Alright, here we go for the power for that. And then also the X4R here should just plug in like this to this connector here, which is on the left side of the USB connector there, which is out the back, and this will just fold underneath like that, underneath there. So now this should be powered, and we should get lights, and we should get lights on the flight controller. So let's plug it in. If you haven't checked the multimeter first, make sure you do check to make sure nothing is shorting. Let's check for lights on both. So yep, there we have the lights on the receiver. Hopefully you can see that red blinking there saying it's not getting a bind, as well as the blue status and red status lights on the flight controller. So everything looks good there. But also just plug the USB in via your computer. You can do that without anything hooked up, just to make sure you can connect it to Clean Flight. But I've already done that for this board, so everything looks good here, so we can go ahead and continue. So I'm going to remove the flight controller here. Take this back off. Now that we know everything's working, because it bit me in the butt on the X210 that I didn't check, and then it turned out to be faulty. So this is going to come underneath the board like this. Be careful not to get any of the wires. And it should. How much room do we have? Let's see, how much room? Oh, we've got plenty of room, so I'm going to get some sticky foam tape and put it down onto the power distribution board. Okay, and before you stick it down, make sure you bind it. So let's put my Tyrannus in bind mode here. And let's get our battery ready. And this is the tricky part, to get the battery plugged in at the same time as pressing the little fail-safe button, which is over here. So there, I have it pressed. And if you can see, hopefully, there's a green solid and a flashing red light underneath there, so it is bound. So if we take that out, just cancel bind mode, and now plug this back in, we got a red light, and it's flashing to green. Okay, I think it had just gone a fail-safe, since it's like a couple inches away, so we got a solid green, so we've got a good bind there. So that's all good. I don't know why the ESCs didn't boot up. But, okay, let's install it. Alright, there we go. I got the flight controller all settled down in there with the receiver underneath. So now we have the power coming up to the board here, and then the plug running down to the S-bus and the receiver in there. And then our antennas will be able to come up out here. Just make sure the props are going to clear. Yeah, that'll be fine there. So next I'm going to take these obnoxiously long ESC wires and finally cut them off and solder these to the board. So this, where the battery thing comes out, I made the left side of my copter so it's facing away from you. The front is up here. So the motor numbers go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 4 here spin clockwise, and 2, 2, and 3 spin counterclockwise here. So we're going to take ESC number 1 here, if we can get it out of the way. And this wire is basically just going to run underneath. Actually, let me see if there is now, because we put the receiver on, I'm not going to bother with it to get underneath there. I'm just going to run them over top of the board this time. I'm going to run this over to slot 1 over here. So let me just cut this right there. Now let's strip and tin these wires. Alright, here we are with our signal wires done. I'm sorry that I missed that on camera, but my camera died and I didn't notice. So I just basically took the wires up 1, 2, 3, 4 with the motors here, and just put the signal to the signal 1 pad. They're labeled 1 through 8, so I'll just put them on there. And then the grounds to all the bottoms there. Excuse me. And I ran them up over the board because of the receiver I put through there. I didn't feel like trying to go under, even though I could have. And besides this one, normally I wouldn't be okay with that because it just looks messy. But this one has a close-fitting top plate on top of it, so you're not going to be able to see it anyways. And then I just hot glued all the connections to make sure the wires aren't going to flex, because they are very thin wires. So for the video transmitter, I've been thinking a bit more while the camera's been recharging. And this wire we put on here earlier, the video transmitter is basically going to have to sit right here. If you can see this, it's basically right where it's going to sit with this pod. I just took apart, there's a pod that sits on top of here, it sits right there. So this wire that we have coming off needs to be about half this length from the power distribution board, and I think I'll be able to get to it from here to those little pads. So we want the wire to end up like right here instead of right here, so it's not in the way of the prop. So I'm going to do that off camera real quick here. Alright, there we go. I got that wire all shortened up. You can see it's quite a bit shorter now, and it'll come up right to here where the video transmitter is. And the antennas, the way I cross them, I can put them around that, and they're going to come back inside of the stack here, so it'll hold these wires from coming out farther against it. So it'll be good there. So next, I'm going to put this plate that goes on here. It just goes across, and let me see, I want this. I might have to reroute some wires and such, but okay. Do I want these to come in? No, I guess I don't. I'll leave them like this. So you just get some of the screws they provide, little metal ones, and your Allen wrench, and just screw them into all four corners. Don't over tighten, because once again you're screwing into the little nylon standoffs. And real quick, when you're doing this, just make sure you have it right, that these little pegs come out to the left and the right, not the front and the back, because the top camera pod plate slides on like this, so obviously you want it to be on the correct way, so just be aware of that as you're putting it on. Alright, and there we go. As you can see, we have that top plate on. And now if you were doing this just for line of sight, no FPV, you could actually stop right here, because the only thing that goes in the top plate, well, besides fixing your receiver antennas, is the camera and the video transmitter. But obviously we're going to be adding FPV here. So these top plates, you can see they have these slits in the bottom. This cutout here is the front. So these just slide over the little notches in the plate that we just put on, like that. And we can see there. So they form this little top pod. And then this piece goes on the top, and they leave a hole for your video transmitter, because ours has a right angle adapter. We're going to have to put it out to the side of that, not up through it. That goes up top, in between two little more cutouts, and then this plate for the back to just put the back a little more structure, as well as to attach your video transmitter to. A little tough to go, the cutouts there. So there you have it, this little pod fully assembled, and your camera just sits in the middle here, and the video transmitter is going to slide back under here. And then you have these little standoffs, these black standoffs they give you, one down here at the bottom, one up here under this plate, and one in the back, and you put those together, and those all tighten to hold everything together. So I'm going to continue on with mounting all the camera equipment up top, a little bit off camera, because I'm going to have to take a long look at the wiring and probably do a couple different renditions, but I will let you know. I'll do little segments when I've done some things to show you how I did it, so it'll give you a better experience. So let's do that. Alright, here we are. I have the camera part partially installed, just so we can do some mock-ups here, and you can see the camera wires coming out from here. And then here is our plug that will go into the video transmitter sitting here. It's going to sit like this, and it'll on the inside of the plate, and that'll plug into the bottom there. So basically, we have to connect the yellow wires together, which is the signal for the video, and then the red and black to the white and black coming out of the video transmitter to give 5 volts to the camera. And I could cut them here and just solder them together, these 3 wires, basically cut them and put them together. But I'm going to cut them really short up here, because I want the video transmitter wires to actually, if you can visualize this, run inside, so back into the thing and connect up here. That way you won't be able to see the heat shrink from the outside, and it'll look a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to have to take this plug out and cut probably about right here, so stuff's going to get pretty short in here. So let's do that. Alright, there we go. I have that little cable made up, so you can see I just took the video transmitter and the camera plugs, cut them, soldered yellow to yellow, white to red, and black to black, as you can see there, and I used corresponding heat shrink. So now this should, if I get my tweezers here and look at it the right way, should plug up into here. And I did still leave myself wiggle room, probably more than I like, but yeah, I still left a bit there. But this can bunch a little bit in there. You won't see it because it'll be behind the video transmitter, and it'll give plenty of wiggle room for your wires during various up tilts. Hopefully you can see that there. And then the video transmitter will come in and plug in like this. If I can get this guy. There we go, plug in just like that, and then here's the main plate. So we should be done soldering. Actually, this is really hard to do on camera. It's gonna take me a while to get this, but you get the idea here. This is gonna go into there, and then there'll be a plate, and then these antennas will come back up through there, and we'll route them to the top plate. But that looks pretty clean there, and the props still do clear. Nothing's out far. As long as it's back behind the standoff, it'll be fine, and those will be pushed in more, maybe secure them with a dab of hot glue. But basically that's how I did that, and that's how that all goes together. And that's what it looks like from the top. So let me get these plates on. It's going to be, you'll have to do that yourself, obviously. It's kind of just fiddling with it until you can get everything to line up at the same time. So let's do that. Okay, so that's now all built together. As you can see, top plate with the 3 little standoffs that go through the middle. One here, one in the bottom of the back here, and one in the top of the back. Make sure to put that in before you get the video transmitter in. As you can see, it's at a little bit of an angle because that's the only way that it'll fit in, because this little piece up here blocks it, so it has to go at a little angle. But I don't think it looks too terribly bad, just a little offset there. You can see, and then I just added I used double-sided sticky tape in between here and this plate to stick it to that, and a little dab of glue here, and up here to help hold it in there, and it's in pretty well there. And then we're just going to mount our receiver antennas up through the plate, bundle them up a little bit so we can get them to come short out the top like this, and heat shrink there. But that's how I did that, and everything's looking really nice coming together here. Really clean. Well, it's not really clean, but it just looks cool. It's a nice build, and it looks like it's going to be pretty awesome. It feels pretty light so far. So next, these antennas are going to be kind of hard to get. I'm just going to try and get them up through here somewhere. Alright, and there we go. I have now secured the antennas. So basically what I just did was ran them from the receiver we have back here, crossed them so they would hold these wires back, ran them up between the video transmitter and the sides, putting a dab of hot glue on there for some stress relief up top so they don't come back out, and they run up through here behind the video transmitter and up over top of the camera. Then they come up through here, and I crossed them once again and just put them up to little zip ties and heat shrunk them. And I think they do look a little bit obnoxious. They are a little bit tall, red, and just out the front kind of look like horns. I don't really like the way they look, but they are going to give me great signal. They're so far up there, and that's just how it happened. I wish I could have maybe put them out the back, but that wouldn't give you as good of range. And it continues the red theme a little bit. So basically next all we're going to do is put our props on. Alright, so I'm putting on my props, and these are the King Kong 3030 quad blades. I did some thrust tests, and these came out as one of the best props that I tested between the King Kong, the stock DAL T3045 tri-blade, and the DAL 3045 dual blade. These perform the best, and I think they look awesome, as well as the shaft on them, the hub. If you can look at this, the hub, you can't really tell. Hold on, let me get a different prop. Okay, so this is just a normal HQ prop, the exact same size hubs as the other props. If you look at the hub comparison, hopefully you can see that the King Kong hubs are quite a bit thinner. This allows the prop to sit down on the shaft more, because since these are very smaller shafts, shorter shafts, you don't get to the lock nut portion with regular props unless you get slimmed down prop nuts. So these having a smaller hub in the middle allows you to use the regular nuts and be able to get the full lock nut tightening down. So you'll have both the counter rotating directions and the lock nuts holding these on, so there should be no way these come off. Let's give them a tighten, and the last one here. And the red and black, it's kind of a red-orange, fits together well with the motors and all the heat shrink that I've done. Alright, there we go. So now let's actually get our battery here. Let's see how that straps on. They don't give you any foam to strap underneath here, which I will be adding definitely. I'd advise some foam underneath here to keep it off the screws. This is a Bonka 4S 850 milliamp hour battery. Right here, let's put this in. Alright, so there we are like that. As you can see, that just fits under there. It's a little bit big for this guy. A 500 milliamp hour 4S would definitely be more of a racing type battery, but this will give you a little longer flight time. You can see this thing just looks awesome here. It just looks so cool, if you ask me, with the quad blades and the red scheme, and it's just so tiny. And you got this battery on the bottom. There's no LEDs, so let's plug this in, see what we get here. There we go, we get all the beeps from all the ESCs, so everything's looking good, and it looks really awesome. So that was the end of part 2 of the build video. So just going to add this in because I know a lot of you want to know, so let's weigh this real quick, and I forgot to do it. So everything, it's fully flight ready, the battery, the props, the antennas, everything's fully ready and on, and we come in at 299 grams, so just under 300 grams, as you can see there. So it's not the lightest 3-inch quad, but it's certainly not bad, and I think with the amount of power we're going to be kicking out of here and durability, with the full-size components like the FPV camera, it's going to be really cool. So let's finish up the video. Everything's fully ready, so stay tuned for part 3, which will be doing the ESC and flight controller setup on the computer. I'll leave a link down below to part 1 where we did the motors, ESCs, and power distribution board. And I'll also leave a link down below to my Patreon to check it out if you enjoyed the video and if it helped you. Please like the video if it helped you, and leave any comments down below if you need any help or questions answered. I'd be glad to help. Please subscribe if you aren't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.